focus on the entire message that's being communicated.
There's our one. Okay, so I have reteaching of theme, identifying theme, and connecting to tone. All right, let's talk about the reteach. We saw that both with the medium performing students and the low performing students, kind of similar, right? Of course, the middle kids, they know how to use quotes. They are able to identify the tone accurately and be able to give the evidence for that. What can we do, like kind of thinking about the reteach, do you want to use inquiry with the kids to guide them? Do you want to use a modeling to really explicitly show them? What do you think might be the best course of action?
She's modeled this.
I have. What I've been, like right now we're doing the pearls, so what I've been focusing on, just because when we get through like symbolism and symbolizing, it kind of brings up the theme as well.
Okay.
So right now, like we've been focusing on characters and objects and say, okay, what do these characters symbolize? So they're like let's just say in the pearl, like the doctor represents greed, right? And then from there, the way I want to approach it is looking at an object or a person and identify more like what would be like a theme that's presented, right? But then being able to kind of expand that to say how is this reflective in society? So let's just say we can say let's just say that often in society, if people do not have wealth, they will be overlooked and that it actually fits because I believe in Geraldo, and right now we're looking at the pearl, the baby not being attended to because the family did not have the way paid. So I'm approaching it right now where we're looking at like there's a lot of symbolism and so I'm looking at symbolism, identifying a word, like infer, and then from that word be able to expand. I'm looking at right now what I'm thinking is for some of those kids like who missed it, like if it's still an issue of them being able to distinguish between there's two parts to this. Okay. So my thought is I might even begin just by adjusting a theme question to see if they can do that if that's the only focus
That's
first.
a good idea.
Well, you did have the student who kind of confused tone and theme, right? When we were talking about theme, he was talking about tone again. So maybe there's still some misconception on really like parsing that out.
And they got tone, you're right, so I like that idea too, just focusing on that part of it.
And I'm also thinking of the possibility of making them aware of here are different themes that happen in literature. Like exposing them to themes, like let's just say if I'm telling them to come up with maybe they're not ready yet. Maybe I need to say, identify universal messages that are found in literature and be able to say, oh, that one seems to fit this one. Because there's
Just
some that are.
grasp the conceptual understanding of that
And then once they
lesson.
have that, let's just say I may begin with here are universal themes that happen in literature. And they can say, oh, I'll begin with this is a universal theme, and then they'll be able to back it up with the text. I'm starting reverse. Instead of here's the text universal theme, I'm going to begin universal theme. How is it represented in this?
Because if they're not exposed to different types of things, it's going to be hard for them to really like think about what theme.
Yeah, and you're going to use both. You're going to lead them through inquiry. I like that, like giving them a bank of like these are, and they can even help coming up with those universal themes, and then they have to find that evidence that shows their interpretation of what the theme is. I love that.
So the hope is that since they say, now if I'm looking at this piece, knowing what I read, this is universal theme versus, kind of.
Okay, Deb, you want to add anything to that? So you're going to use inquiry, and then you'll figure out if you need to use a think aloud, maybe with the lower kids. Deb, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, no, that's what I was thinking because, like I said, when I started, we do this name that theme, and it comes up. You have the broad theme, the message, the universal message, which is what my group is working on now. The universal message, not bringing it to one word yet, and that's our next step.
Okay.
And so it's going to work out really well.
Okay.
I believe. I mean, how many did you have in your low group?
I had several because for many of them it was that theme part, so it's like half missing. So many of them I know, and this was the first time I added like both the theme and tone together because because many of the other responses were more them interpreting, right? So this was more like they're looking at here like those literary devices. So that's a little bit more complex when it comes to the. So yeah, this is.
Do you show them the higher?
Yes.
Okay.
Because that could be,
That's a good
that's another layer for maybe the reteach. I like that idea too, to use it as an exemplar for them to highlight. You might see if you have to differentiate it for some of those other.
It's needed for both because the ones that were,
Yeah.
anything that would be a 3 and below for me, but even though the format, it could be those that got 4, but
Okay.
it doesn't mean that they were on. See,
Okay.
so I would say the ones that had 6 or maybe about just 3. But
All right.
this from one.
For your high students, just a quick thought, if you could somehow fit in through differentiation, I think they're ready to start making connections to the theme of the overall, like vignettes, like all of them,
Absolutely.
right? Like, so
Absolutely.
have them really think of like the big picture and go outside of just this text.
Yes.
And have them connecting themes between 2 pieces of text, that's,
Right.
now you're getting them on like some higher
Right.
DOK stuff.
And like you said, you spotted some of the stories.
Some kids have been able to make those connections with other vignettes, but this one's a little bit different. Some of them
It
were
is
more
different.
obvious, so this,
It
I
is
think for some of them,
different.
just grasping
Yeah.
the idea of the theme and that was, I knew it was gonna be a bit of a challenge, but I mean, we're
It's a heavy-
somewhere.
yeah.
But you're continuing it with the
With the
pro.
pro, yes.
When do you see yourself, so you're probably gonna use the Pearl to do this, right?
Right.
You already know the text you're
Right.
gonna use. Do you have an idea when you want to do the read?
Well-
See yourself in this week?
Yes,
Like
yes,
emphasizing this,
yes.
okay, beautiful. Now, your tracker's on the calendar.
Yes.
This will be meeting 4 for you, Imelda. So I'll go ahead and put the assessment, the standard, and if you could just put the numbers in of the kids that demonstrated mastery. And that way, next time we get together, we could kind of look at yours before we analyze your student work.
And for the others, I'm gonna enter just because I gave my prompt back, so I have to go to the new grade book to look at my
Thank
scores
you.
based on what I entered to.
Thanks for taking the time to do that. How did the process go today? How do you feel, Melda?
I feel good, I'm not so much the process that they cut off with, it's just more as I'm thinking of the reteaching and how I make sure my kids get it.
It's that reteaching, right? Okay, wonderful.
When we go through this and you realize, wait, now I can see it with new eyes. I look at it. And because obviously this wasn't done yesterday, so she did it before and she gets a chance.
Yes.
So that's the way it is with all of us. And so that's what I like about this process. It keeps bringing us back. It grounds us.
Okay, perfect. All right, I'll send a calendar invite for our next meeting.